Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the CEU Executive MBA Budapest Online Open Day with guests from around the world. My name is Thomas Lammel. I'm the Senior Program Manager, and I will guide you through this evening. If you're looking for an Executive MBA with a tailored curriculum for experienced managers, a program that fits your life, world-renowned faculty, the best in-class multi-campus experience, a network that you can count on, world-class experience at local price, and your leadership transformation, you have to the right place. If you have any questions, I will collect them for the Q&A session at the end. Start tonight's presentation with the program presentation. First, I want to talk about the program itself, the philosophy and practical information about the nature of the program. You don't have to go very far these days to encounter that we are witnessing fundamental transformations in the world. Some are positive and some are pretty dangerous. The key question is, how do we as business professionals prepare for this challenging and unpredictable environment? The obvious question is an MBA the way to do it? We have seen an explosion of online education these days, and I'll show you why we believe our MBA is worth it. If you're interested in further education, you usually start searching for an MBA program in the city you live in. What you tend to find is mostly a pretty standard MBA curriculum, a faculty who are delivering the program are local, a number of international students, which is pretty low. Some programs in Western Europe can be quite expensive, and local programs don't require you to leave your job. In contrast, with the top business schools in the world, they often have a very differentiated curriculum with a mission-driven approach. They offer a certain expertise or perspective. Because of the full-time format, their student body is international actually. Leaving the labor market for 1 or 2 years, which is another financial burden. These programs are rather expensive. They're at a cost of 100,000 euro or even more. And you may have to move your family to the EMBA location. So what we offer, what CEU Executive MBA offers, is the best of two worlds. There is no work interruption thanks to the practical and flexible modular format. I will talk about it later. The MBA mission is, the Executive MBA is very mission driven. I will talk about the Executive MBA for the open world philosophy later. We have an international student body because of the modularity of the program. Participants thus can fly in and out, which is a major advantage of the program. And when we say world-class faculty, we really mean it. Soon after joining the program, you'll have an important course on data-driven executive decision-making. Meet your professor, Claudia Steinwelder, who has just moved to CEU from MIT Sloan School, and before she taught at Harvard Business School. The follow-up course on big data and artificial intelligence will be taught by Miklos Koren, one of the leading scholars in the field in Europe with a Harvard PhD. For strategy, you'll have Yusuf Akbar, the faculty co-director of Executive MBA, who has taught in more than 40 countries and advises leading Fortune 500 companies. For innovation, you'll have Mike Labelle, who holds a prestigious EU Jean Monnet chair. For leadership, Austin, our world-class psychologist with executive education experience on 4 continents, will lead the way. If you're new to finance, Joy is a uniquely gifted educator. Generation after generation of our students tell us how she's just unique in explaining complex financial concepts. And if you're already experienced in finance, you'll be placed in the advanced track course with Adam Zawodowski, a leading expert on complex investments with a PhD from Princeton. Some of our visiting faculty, just to give you an impression of our diverse and renowned faculty here, is Professor Christian Selos from Stanford University, or Professor Miklos Savary from Columbia University, Professor Omar Hernandez from Berkeley, or Professor Hui Chen from the University of Zurich. Here is what the program looks like. It's a 10-module program. The dates you see on the screen are not going to change, so you can basically plan your studying around professional and family activities based on these dates. As you can see, we have 3 modules in the first year, 4 modules in the second year, and 3 modules in the third year, which gives you both flexibility and a balance in your life. We're piggybacking around popular European holidays like May 1st or November 1st or August 15th, when it's easier for you to take time off your job and to join the modules. In the summers, our bespoke and cutting-edge leadership program takes place on our beautiful Budapest campus, and you'll have the opportunity to benefit from electives from the faculty in the world we invite to teach at our classes. There will come a day when you will finish the degree and you will join the CEU alumni family from around the world. CEU is the second most international university according to the Times Higher Education, and you can rely on an active elite network on every continent. We have city-level chapters, country-level chapters. Basically, wherever you are in the world, you'll find CEU alumni to interact with, to mingle, and to reach out to. This network is a network that you can count on, and one of the key assets that we have. So the question is, how are we able to offer such a high-quality program at only 25,000 euros? The answer lies in our founder and benefactor, George Soros, who created CEU with the mission to promote open society. As you can see from this newspaper article, just recently, George Soros made a further contribution to CEU's mission by offering another $1 billion in endowment to create the Open Society University Network, which means we are the best endowed university in Europe. As you can see from the side slide here, CEU was founded in 1991 by George Soros with the mission to promote open society. We have currently graduate students from 123 countries, a very diverse, very international faculty from over 50 countries, a very active alumni network in more than 140 countries, and a huge financial endowment thanks to George Soros. So what does the executive MBA for the open world mean? First of all, when we talk about open world, we mean skepticism towards dogmas, hierarchies, and privileges, both in context on how we teach, but also in composition of the cohort. Diversity is key to creating a successful program, and diversity is everything we do in everything we approach. It's not an empty catchphrase. Secondly, we believe in debate and radical rational thinking. Every idea can be challenged. We believe in facts and arguments rather than narratives and fake news. Narratives create polarization in societies nowadays, but we believe the best way to challenge this narrative-based discourse at the moment is to make arguments based on facts and realities, which is the hallmark, basically, of Karl Popper's definition of open societies. We are fundamentally opposed to all kinds of discrimination, and we actively promote diversity within our program. As I said, diversity is not an empty catchphrase. We actively encourage and promote diversity within our program. The way we finance the scholarship means we create opportunities for people who traditionally have not been able to actually join the program because they are members of marginalized communities or are coming from countries with a relatively low income. But we see managers and professionals not just as people who deal with business and resources, but we also believe that managers go beyond that. They are positive change agents in our world. So as you can see, this is a typical classroom here at CEU. Sorry. Here we go. What does your CEU EMBA classroom look like? It's the average cohort that we currently have. Currently, we have about 65 managers and professionals with an average of 14 years of work experience, including a minimum of 3 years of work experience. As you can see from this image, from the background, we use state-of-the-art classroom technology and setups in order to facilitate discussion and interaction. We make use of case-based learning rather than traditional lectures that you will find at local MBA programs. And we want to take you, experts in your specific field, from this level of functional expertise to the strategic level. As I already said, tuition is relatively low at 25,000 euro, thanks to our financial endowment. And the tuition is for the whole program, and it includes all credits. In order to defray your other costs, we have special rates at partner hotels and discounts for flights. We negotiated discount codes with partner hotels going from budget to luxury in Budapest and Vienna. And we negotiated discount codes with Lufthansa and Austrian, which will bring you to Vienna or Budapest. So we invite you to join the open world. The application deadline is March 21st, and the application starts online on our website. However, I strongly encourage you to apply as soon as possible because we have a first come, first served policy. In order to secure your study seat, you will need to apply, the earlier the better. You're invited to book an individual one-on-one consultation with me to discuss your application, or if you have any other questions to optimize your application. Sorry. So I think it's one thing to hear about the program from us who are in charge of the program, but it's another thing to talk about the program with people who have done the program or are in the program right now. That's why we invited Sylvia and Michael to join us tonight. And we will start with Sylvia Ekresh. Hello, Sylvia. She's the technical sales manager and developer at Maxam Group in Hungary. And Sylvia, I would kindly invite you to please introduce yourself and tell us something about your background and how you found CEU Executive MBA and why did you choose Executive MBA?
Yes, thank you very much, Thomas. Yes, so first of all, I would also like to greet the online participants of this event. So exactly 1 year ago, I was in your shoes. So I also participated in CEU EMBA Open Day. Well, except with the difference that you don't need to bother to look for a parking place to participate on this event. I kind of miss those days. So actually, what led me to the decision to participate in an EMBA program was that having worked as a technical sales manager most of my career, I felt that I kind of reached a glass ceiling where I can't move really forward without a strong business background. And this is why I decided to pursue an education in business in the form of an EMBA. With my background, I'm a chemist. So I have a background in natural sciences, and I did feel the pain of not being able to speak the proper financial accounting and business language in my everyday job. So that is what led me to the decision to pursue an MBA degree. When I joined the Open Day event exactly 1 year ago, So before that, I've done a rather thorough investigation myself of also other MBA programs. So I also participated in an MBA fair, which was organized in Budapest, and I also joined in into some online open days. I had three very important aspects in my investigation for the suitable MBA program for myself. That was the modular format, because I just can't afford taking a whole year or 2 years off of my job. I wanted a manageable modular format in international campuses. The second aspect was that I was looking for a program taught by a renowned faculty. And I also wanted to have a very diverse professional network, to build a diverse professional network to which I can count on also after the graduation. And the third important aspect was the tuition fee. And the available scholarships, which even further decrease the tuition fees. So I remember exactly 1 year ago when I came home to my family after the open day event. I told my husband that I found my school. So I found my future community. I found my school. Why? I felt that the modular format that is being offered by CEU is simply a perfect fit for a working professional on a managerial level, who, as myself, so also I traveled a lot. I hope to come back to those days. But in any case, so it is the format is a perfect fit, as Thomas described in the past minutes. So it's built around the national holidays, popular holidays in Europe, where the business is slow anyway. The CEU has so the CEU EMBA program is being offered at 2 campuses in Budapest and Vienna. And this was also a very attractive aspect, that because I kind of see the 2 cities combining East and West, the Eastern and Western Europe, or the Eastern and Western Hemisphere. So we can have both experiences here. And actually both campuses are very well equipped technically. So the second aspect, what I considered, was the renowned faculty and the professional network. So Thomas also introduced the faculty, which is really amazing. I can tell you now firsthand. We have had several. So the several lecturers I have met so far, they have been simply phenomenal. And I'm repeating myself. So as a chemist, I came into this program as a true dummy for finance, accounting, and all these all the business related technical subjects were very new to me. And these phenomenal lecturers have brought me to, I feel, a fair level, actually a quite strong level in a matter of a couple of weeks. So now I actually realize that in my everyday job, I can stand the ground very well when talking to our internal colleagues who are accountants or are responsible for finance and so on. So I learned to speak the languages of these subjects, and I feel that I gained a fair knowledge in order to be able to discuss such topics as well. And this was simply necessary so that I can move on further in my career, further up. Also regarding the professional network, another aspect that really struck me was that CEU offers electives even beyond the graduation. So it is really amazing that this whole experience doesn't end when you get your diploma in your hands, but you can continue building up your knowledge and attending the electives, meeting further cohorts, meeting further lecturers, even beyond your graduation. I think that is really phenomenal. The third aspect, which I considered important in my decision, was of course always the elephant in the room, and that is the price, the tuition fee, and the available scholarships. So I can tell you that this is really simply an excellent price per value ratio. Having this amount, this affordable amount of the tuition fee allows that the cohort does not consist only of super rich yuppies from financial capitals, but we have such a diverse cohort. Just to tell you a couple of words about our current cohort. So I was very happy to learn that we have a rather high percentage of female participants as well. I believe it's close to 40%, even something like that. You know, I myself, I work in the downstream oil business, where I very often find myself being the only woman around the negotiation table. So this has been a very refreshing and nice thing to see that other female leaders are also in this program. What provided me a very steep learning experience, so steep meaning up steep learning experience, was that we have so diverse backgrounds with my classmates. So we come both from corporate and from non-profit organizations, and and it was very interesting for me to see how differently we think. It's truly amazing that we corporate people, or people coming from corporate backgrounds, we are programmed to make money, while people from the nonprofit backgrounds, they're programmed to, maybe I'll say it in a very romantic way, but they are here to make the world a better place. And I think we learn very nicely from each other, because we also need to learn how to make the world a better place with our corporate backgrounds and our money-making machines. While the nonprofit background people, well, of course, they need the money to survive. But I think it's a very nice interchange of ideas and ways of thinking. So for example, to me, so it struck me during the first module when, so we have a classmate who is the president of a marginal community. And the aspects he was bringing into our discussions, you know, so we never ever thought about that. And the world doesn't consist of only corporations and dollar signs. So it's been a very interesting experience, and I learned a lot, and I continue to learn a lot from my classmates, just from the diversity perspective. So my classmates have legal, financial, technical, scientific, art backgrounds. It's pretty amazing how differently we all think, and how differently we can contribute to a discussion of a problem or a solution of a problem. I believe we are very diverse in terms of age as well. So there are some very young classmates of mine around the age of 30, and I believe we're up to, I don't know, 55, 60 years old. So you can see here also diversity in the generations. And also here, it's pretty amazing how different working habits and ways of thinking we can bring into the classroom. And also, I believe that in terms of diversity, we come from actually 5 continents. So it's also great to see such an international cohort. I just mentioned another thing, and then I think I use my time. Another very, very positive aspect, what I found during my experience at CEU is that it's not a one-way teaching, that the lecturer stands out and that we all listen then and then just repeat what is being said, which is unfortunately still a very usual way of teaching, at least in the areas where I come from. So it's a very much two-way cooperation. So we learn from the lecturers, and also the lecturers learn from us. There are many interactive projects, class discussions, team projects, and so on, where we all give inputs. So really in 2 ways. And also a praise to the faculty directors is that they listen very much to all our ideas on how to improve. Of course, as in every aspect of life, they might be a few glitches, but it's really, really impressive how much energy and time they actually put in order to iron them. They listen to our ideas, and they also implement them. So it's a very, very appreciated aspect, which I do believe that doesn't occur in all the MBA schools in the world. Yeah.
Thank you, Silvia, for so much deep insight on your background, the industry you're working in, and the environment you're working in at CEU Executive MBA, and talking about the diversity in class. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
You're very welcome.
I will now pass the baton to Professor Maciej Kisilowski, who will deliver the research presentation on entrepreneurs and governments, a love-hate relationship. Just to put some background information here on Maciej. Maciej Kisilowski is the CEU Executive MBA Faculty Co-Director and Associate Professor of Law and Public Management. He has a JSD degree from Yale, an MPA from Princeton, and an MBA with distinction from INSEAD. He's advisor to governments, international organizations, progressive political movements from around the world, and a frequent contributor to international media, including Politico, Project Syndicate, Foreign Policy, and Wall Street Journal. Maciej, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everybody. Thomas mentioned rightly that we don't believe in narratives, we believe in facts, data, and we base our arguments on that, but narratives matter. So I want to talk about the real facts behind narratives that connect to entrepreneurship, and especially how those narratives shape governmental policies. I want to start with the notion of this love-hate relationship, which in Europe we have between governments and entrepreneurs. On one hand, there is the love, which is that every European politician spends all their effort to say how important small and medium-sized enterprises and entrepreneurial activities are for European economy. You see a few quotes from EU SME strategy, calling the SMEs the backbone of EU economy. Angela Merkel, perhaps the most powerful politician on the continent, in one of her important speeches in Munich a few years ago, mentioned that we should also appreciate how the governmental support to entrepreneurship is important, so that they should also have part of our appreciations to the entrepreneurial sector. So there is this public repeated emphasis on supporting entrepreneurship by governments. And then there is the trouble. You can see here on the screen the World Bank Ease of Doing Business rank, which is a pretty rigorous multi-year measure of how regulatory and governmental environment in virtually all countries in the world are conducive or not to business activity and entrepreneurship, especially. As you can see, the list is not very, it's not very good for Europe. In the top 30, we have very few countries beyond the Scandinavian countries, which are perfect in every regard, beyond traditional Anglo-American UK, to the extent we still consider it Europe. Some microstates in the so-called New Europe, Estonia, famously pro-business, but actually Lithuania is ranked higher. But in terms of continental Western European countries, the first one that you can see is Germany at 22nd. Then Austria comes at 27th. And we don't even want to talk about the bulk of bigger Eastern European countries. Hungary is 52nd, which is actually interesting because one thing we would hope from this so-called illiberal democracy that Prime Minister Orban promotes is that things would go faster, would be more flexible than in the traditional democratic systems, but apparently it's not. Singapore is always an aspirational model for Hungary, just 50 spots in the doing business rank between the 2nd and 52nd. So the narrative and the reality, coming back to Thomas's point. Now, traditionally, until very recently, this trouble of Europe getting more meaningfully pro-entrepreneurial was always a source of embarrassment for European politicians. So the love was the running ideological line, and the trouble making this love impact things on the ground that actually matter was always a source of embarrassment. So nobody was really challenging the notion of supporting entrepreneurship. It was just unfortunate reality that it's very difficult to do. I want to bring to your attention that over the last decade, that consensus, that narrative ideological consensus is changing. We have an increasing number of voices that are saying that this set of rules and bureaucratic standards that may not be the most conducive for small and medium-sized entrepreneurial start-up type of activity, that this actually may not be that bad after all, and that this default narrative of support of entrepreneurship may actually be the thing that's misguided. Thomas Piketty, probably the most influential economist alive, talks very openly in his new book, published last year, about it. The discourse of meritocracy and entrepreneurship often seems to serve primarily as a way for the winners in today's economy to justify any level of inequality whatsoever, while blaming the losers for lacking talent, virtue, and diligence. Entrepreneurship is no longer the object of love from governments. It's a dangerous hype that is underscoring a number of social problems and tensions that Western societies face. Mariana Mazzucato, another highly influential economist in a very influential 2015 book, makes it very blunt. Although there is much talk about small firms creating jobs, and increasingly a focus of policymakers, the love that I was talking about, this is mainly a myth, she says. While by definition, small firms will create jobs, they will also destroy a large number of jobs when they go out of business, says or points out Mariana Mazzucato. And it's very interesting because that entrepreneurially skeptical view or skeptical view of entrepreneurship is actually not new. It might have been forgotten over the last few decades, but actually a little note in intellectual history, the father of scientific thinking about entrepreneurship, Joseph Schumpeter, who came up with this classic, enormously influential notion of creative destruction. In his 1911 book, he made this famous quote: "It's not the owner of stagecoaches who build new railways." While the technology changed and the relevant industries changed, the thought is iconic for this idea of entrepreneurship as the engine that pushes us forward. Very interestingly, the same Joseph Schumpeter, in another later book, actually, came up with a much more skeptical view of small and medium-sized startup businesses, saying that as we require into where the progress was most conspicuous, the trails lead to the doors of the big business that has resources, critical mass, processes, management practices, which actually push the frontier forward. And these two views between creative destruction, this pro-entrepreneurship view, and the idea of creative accumulation that focuses more on big businesses, is now becoming very much alive in the public debate. Interestingly, data doesn't show, despite the gut feeling of maybe most of you, that it's the pro-entrepreneurial view that would be mostly supported by data. It's not the case. There is very little relation that has been detected rigorously between the size of companies and employment growth. The evidence of firm size and productivity is mixed. I would say that more of the sources suggest that SMEs are actually less productive than larger companies for the reasons that I discussed. There is some research that shows that SMEs are more productive, but also more risky. Very interesting and very large, relatively recent meta-analysis of 380 studies of performance of family businesses shows that they fare slightly better in terms of performance than other businesses, but only if they are large and publicly traded, not when they are small and privately held. And other related views, for example, size contingent regulations, famous French labor law, Affordable Care Act in America, which give breaks from certain regulatory requirements for companies up to a certain size, let's say 50 workers or 50 employees or full-time equivalents. They have been found to harm workers actually and introduce distortions. And they are the tangible example of this love towards entrepreneurship narrative. And then comes COVID. All of this mixed record of entrepreneurship has been happening before COVID. Now COVID, let me put it mildly, does not make the picture prettier for those who support entrepreneurship. SMEs employ 45% of workers in America, but were responsible for 62% of losses. You have 47% mid-sized firms staying healthy, but only 33.5% of small firms are staying healthy during the crisis. Also, there was a big substrain of this entrepreneurial love narrative, which was suggesting that entrepreneurship can lift from poverty or from the status of being discriminated against members of discriminated minorities. And unfortunately, during COVID, those SMEs owned by disadvantaged groups are experiencing largest losses. Similar data from Canada: women-owned businesses fire disproportionately higher percentage of workers. Once again, confirming that when that small businesses and entrepreneurial activity may not be as much of a long-term stable equalizer of social problems and disparities. And then you look at governmental response, and actually German Kurzarbeit program, which is very much focused on large stable companies, is viewed as much more effective than, for example, what US was doing, which is the paycheck protection program, which is much more focused on small businesses. But in all countries, OECD points out that there is very little focus on structural policies, how we, the so-called new normal, how we reorient the industries. And it is especially difficult for small and medium-sized companies, which are struggling the most and have fewer resources to think about this this reorientation in the post-COVID new normal. An incredibly suggestive data from UK recent study, which shows the expected change, or of course we are talking about loss of earnings by employees divided into small, mid-size, and large companies. So on the horizontal line you have, or axis, you have the size of a company. On the left here you have very small entities with less than 100 headcount, the medium size, and the large and very large ones. Yes, and then you further have it divided by the age group, and you see that employees of the smallest companies are suffering disproportionately high. The larger your employer is, the less you will suffer in terms of drop in your earnings because of COVID. All of this adds to this question, yes, and adds fuel to those critics of the dogma that entrepreneurship is great and should be supported. And yet the dogma is still very, very much alive in the kind of media, business media type of environments. At the end of my talk, I want to give you a case in point here. Many of us, all of us, I guess, are eagerly waiting for our COVID vaccine. You probably have seen almost parallel, almost simultaneous coverage of two corporate partners of the most effective European vaccine, BioNTech and Pfizer. When the vaccine proved to be spectacularly effective, you had this glowing coverage of BioNTech, a relatively small, decade-long startup in Germany, funded by a married couple of scientists, Dr. Ugur Sahin and Dr. Özlem Türeci, children of children of Turkish immigrants. And this is a New York Times article about them. The coverage was glowing, and rightly so. Interestingly, however, a very different narrative surrounded at the very same time the partner of BioNTech, the large partner which provided cash, regulatory expertise in approvals, clinical trials, distribution, manufacturing, which is Pfizer. And especially the object of ire was Dr. Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, who was questioned about after his stock options were cashed on the day of the announcement, or very soon to the announcement of the vaccine's effectiveness. Now, an interesting thing that was rarely mentioned in criticism of Mr. Bourla is that he too is an immigrant. He immigrated from Greece. He is not some sort of corporate shark in a suit, but he actually is a doctor and worked for Pfizer for 25 years, including as global vaccine chief. And interestingly, the 5.6 million stock sales that took place at the time of the announcement of the vaccine results was approved in August as part of a predetermined stock compensation plan. So basically, the sale was approved as at a certain striking price, and that price was hit when the vaccine trial results were published, and that's why it happened. But it wasn't Dr. Bourla's decision to sell or to cash his option on that day. Dr. Bourla's net worth is substantial, $26 million. But what is missing in all this story is that at the very same time, when the world was criticizing Dr. Bourla for cashing those pre-approved plan for options, Dr. Sahin and Dr. Türeci earn almost $500 million in appreciation of their stock in BioNTech, making them, Mr. Sahin in particular, reach his personal net worth of $4.6 billion. So who is a David and who is a Goliath? Yes, who is the big corporate shark and who is the upstart entrepreneur? If you look at the two photos that I show you from the major media, on the right you have this corporate insider in a suit, probably testifying about some wrongdoing in front of a congressional committee, and on the left you almost have this self-made couple of immigrants whom we should idolize. And the truth is that we probably should idolize both of all of them, because without the cooperation, without the resources of Pfizer and expertise of Pfizer, we probably would not have this vaccine. So what are the takeaways about entrepreneurship? First of all, you need to understand that there is no policy consensus on entrepreneurship, or policy consensus on entrepreneurship is dying. Which means in practice, if you run a small and medium-sized business and you depend on governmental support, you need to factor in a risk that policies can change in the future. And that more generally, a more uncertain world may limit entrepreneurial opportunities. If you think about this crisis as an isolated incident, okay, that's just a black swan. But if you think about the last decade, witnessing the largest financial crisis since the Great Depression, largest migration crisis in Europe since World War II, and now the largest pandemic since 1918, the question is, if the world is becoming more volatile and uncertain, is it going to be the world where small and medium-sized enterprises can survive as such an important part of economy? In terms of your strategy as an entrepreneur, we would advise, and we teach you at CEU Executive MBA, to build scenarios. Think about, can my startup survive without governmental help? Can my startup survive during another crisis? If you think about it, a lot of these entrepreneurship promoting policies are not really affecting a company like BioNTech. If you have an idea to develop a COVID vaccine, you will be able to build up your company, find the capital, and fulfill all the intricate regulatory environments of the most bureaucratic Western European countries, with or without governmental help. It's more the ideas which may be good, but not as good or as revolutionary, that may be more sensitive to these scenarios. How much help I can get from the government? Can you respond proactively? Can you ally with other small businesses in your local or regional or national chamber of commerce? Can you engage into pressuring governments to help your industry, especially at the time of crisis? And as I said, also take a critical view at your idea. Am I more like a BioNTech, or am I more like another producer of organic candles? Yes, which may be very nice, but then the question is, do I have enough of differentiation going on to actually be able to attract resources, talent, to potentially weather crisis in our uncertain world? And then consider entrepreneurial options as one response to this changing policy environment and economic environment, because maybe a lot of your ideas can be realized as an entrepreneurial project, which is something new, but that is going to be incubated in a context of a large organization that requires a lot of internal politics and convincing, but so does the entrepreneurship. So these are the takeaways for entrepreneurs. And my final note is the takeaways about our program. So I hope this presentation showed you that, like other great American universities, our research and teaching gives you a critical perspective, including on American business practices. We are not just heralding the American East Coast optimistic line. We really mean it when we say we are a program with no dogmas. We want you to understand the big picture. We want you to be in control of your strategy by seeing broader trends that go on in society and in politics. We offer a variety of voices. I put the advertisement for our CEU Innovation Lab, our entrepreneurial hub, because if you join the iLab, you probably will have a completely different perspective than anything what I've discussed today. And that's good. That's a sign of a good university, that you have all those perspectives, all different angles. We want to be practical. We want to give you the big picture, but then give you the practical lessons. we are not only about how, we are not a vocational school, we are about why you need to do things in a certain ways. And we always try to make you think. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions about entrepreneurship, I'm happy to answer. If not, we can continue with the evening.
Thank you, Maciej. You just gave the perfect example, a short example, unfortunately, but the perfect example for our academic excellence in just 20 minutes. I received indeed a question through private chat on SME encouragement in emerging markets. What's your take on encouraging people to found companies in emerging markets or so-called developing countries in order to fight unemployment?
So you need to take this data that I showed you. And the data suggests that it's not a magic wand. It's not going to, just because you call it a company, a new entity, it's not going to change the fact that you may have limited access to elite networks. You may be an outsider, you may be suffering ethnic, religious, racial, gender discrimination. You may be coming from working class background, in which case you don't have these tacit networks and links that people from more privileged backgrounds have. All of those things will not disappear just because you go and set up your own business. And that's what this data and what this history of the COVID crisis really shows, that those things stay whether you are called a CEO or whether you are in an organization facing those challenges and structures that are stuck against you. So I think in general, I would say have an open mind. Remember that large organizations, for all their arbitrariness and unfairness and sluggishness and all the frustrating fact that you have this boss which is so much worse than you on every aspect above you, they do provide not only financial cushion that allows you to go through crises like this one. They also are humongous networks, internally and externally. They have very often extensive knowledge base that they accumulated over the years, from which you can benefit. So my short conclusion of the long answer to the important question is be very fact-based in deciding whether to go entrepreneurial. And if you really think that you have some idea that is so unique that setting it up as an independent organization would really make a change, then go for it. But if this is just an expression of frustration with things that are generally unfair and challenging in our lives, do not expect that going independent will change all those things and be this magic one that will change your life. It won't.
Do you think that the share between SMEs and large companies in our economies, in Western economies at least, will dramatically change due to the corona pandemic, or will it stay the same?
So it can change because of the pandemic, and it can change because of what I mentioned, which is a changing policy climate, less enthusiastic policy climate towards entrepreneurship. And of course, those two things coincide, because if governments see that it's enormously costly to keep those small restaurants and tons of small shops, small everything afloat, because they can't structurally change because they don't have enough resources, then this process of questioning the value of entrepreneurship that has already started before the crisis, the COVID crisis, will accelerate. And then, yes, if you have the economic fundamentals and the policy change, because a lot of the reason why we have so many SMEs is because we support them through policy, variety of policy measures. If we stop supporting them, we'll have fewer of them, yes? So both of those two things make it likely that we will need to then, creative types among us will need to come up with new ideas how to express. That's why I emphasize intrapreneurship, because the fact that you can't set up your own business, which at the end so often depends on its customers, it's sometimes just a mirage how independent you are just because it's a separate business. If you have 2 or 3 big corporate clients, you do B2B, how different it is from being a respected, entrepreneurial, proactive manager within a big conglomerate. Much less different than you would think on first glance.
Thank you. We will now move on to the general Q&A session. I had the opportunity to collect the questions that you put into the chat box or sent to me in private, and they are addressing Maciej. Maciej, please, can you tell us about the COVID measures and if there's online learning because of COVID?
So this is such a good evening to talk about mixed blessings of online learning. If anybody on this webinar had trouble logging in, it's because Zoom crashed on us for inexplicable reasons, suddenly started to show error messages. Now, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we will personally deliver you an email with the entire recording of this event. We've been trying to keep our cool, but you probably saw us frantically mailing or texting each other throughout this evening. And it's because I was trying to talk about entrepreneurship while seeing the event crashing, which shows you that there is no substitute to in-person experience. We don't believe in online education as a principle. We believe that it's necessary as a stopgap measure because of this unprecedented pandemic. This is not our approach to education in general. So actually, very much unlike most of our competitors, including very, very expensive competitors, who basically decided at the start of this pandemic, we turned the entire program online. Top programs in Europe did it. We don't agree with that because we believe that what our participants lose is too important. The personal connection, the breaks, the tacit, the body language in the discussion. I mean, all of those things are lost. And that's why we, at a great expense, introduce unprecedented measures to keep as much of the program on site as possible. We had 2 very successful modules during COVID where we were stepping up as the situation was and stepping up precautions, safety measures. In October, the things have changed so fast, but in October, when we had our fall module, we were one of the first universities in Vienna who introduced rapid testing, the rapid antigen testing for every incoming student coming to the module. Now everybody uses it, but at that time they were just approved. We do offer an option to participate online if you are unable to travel because of travel restrictions, or because of your health concerns, but because a lot of people still participate on site despite the situation with very large social distancing. We put you in a class that has 3 times the capacity of the number of people sitting in the class. Because you have a critical mass of people in class, it also benefits you if you can't come, because you are not one of the 70 people on a Zoom call, but you may be one of the 5 or 10 people who couldn't join. So the instructor can pay more attention to your needs if you cannot come on site. We split sections. This is very, very expensive, but we do it in order to fit people safely in a classroom with social distancing. We simply split sections. The class, as Thomas mentioned, is usually about 65 to 70 people. We split it into 2 so that we can safely run the class with a few people being online in each section. All of this has one goal: to still create this campus experience and this transformational experience for you in your professional life that we want you to associate your executive MBA, not just a set of courses finished by the degree.
The next question is very practical. It refers to exams, if there are any, and how they are going to take place, and the thesis, if there is one.
But another good question, and another example of how we do things at CEU Executive MBA. We ask you to come to 10 residential modules, 4 days or 9 days, as Thomas mentioned. And they are spread over 28 months, so they are basically every quarter, 1 visit every quarter. This is precious, ultra precious time when all of you in your class are in one place. What we don't waste this time on is things like exams. If there is an exam in a class, you will take it at home at your convenience during a 10-day exam period after the module. But the time that you actually devote towards traveling to Vienna and occasionally to Budapest to do this program is time devoted to exchanging ideas, to meeting your classmates, to hearing their views on business, and not to write exams. That's offloaded between the modules. The thesis, CEU Executive MBA's approach to thesis is show us how knowledge that we teach you in the program is implemented in practice. It's not a long dissertation. It's a portfolio of successful or less successful implementations, but earnestly undertaken implementations of the stuff we teach you. And you need to gather 5 specific along specific categories, and you need to report to us what the implementing process taught you. It's done during the second year, or throughout the second year of your program.
Can you tell me, can you tell us about the academic narrative? Like what disciplines do we teach? What modules do we teach? And what's
so, Thomas, you show the slide.
Sure.
I can explain the narrative. Let me start by saying that the overall narrative is this idea of moving you from the functional level. This is a program that is intended for people who made it in their functional field, which is why we have an 8-year work experience, 3-year leadership experience minimum. It's a minimum. We have 14 years work experience average. So we want people who already made it in their field, let's say marketing or finance or a specific field of engineering or even non-profit. And what they are looking for is to move from that level of functional expertise to the level of strategic leadership. When you manage across functions in an organization, or even across organizations, or even across the sectors of economy. So that's where we are really, really good, because this research excellence of CEU allows us to really give you the tools to go from that functional to that strategic level. So if you think moving from functional to strategic level, what you have in front of you are the ways and tools how to get to this goal. And if you want like an overarching narrative, which is a good question, I would say in this transformation from functional to strategic, you need two types of skills. One are the so-called hard skills, numerical skills, finance, or if you are already in finance, advanced finance, big data analytics. It's now impossible to make strategic decisions without data. Technology, accounting. So these are the hard skills of senior business leadership. And there are also a lot of softer skills, more critical thinking oriented, leadership, strategy, innovation, entrepreneurship, and intrapreneurship. And most of business schools, most of good business schools, actually we know it in the industry, are known for being either very good in those hard numerical skills, they are kind of the number-driven MBAs, and some of them are very good in the soft ones. And as I said, everybody knows who is who. When we put together this program, we had the benefit, because we are so integrated in this multidisciplinary university, one of the leading research universities in Europe, we intentionally design a program that will be strong on both aspects. And I hope Sylvia can confirm, but feel free to jump in, that it actually is very even in being very rigorous numerically. So you have those modules in finance, in big data, a heavy focus on accounting, micro and macroeconomics, also not only as a cocktail party conversation, but focus on understanding how you can apply models to real life. But then, because of our open society, this critical nature of our university, you have also very strong this strategic social part, innovative part, the softer part, which is very strong. So this is unique. And because, as I said, I know a lot of those programs, it's the industry in which I operate, I must say this is really unique in terms of curriculum, the evenness of those two legs, and how you will get a very, very top quality curriculum and content on both of those dimensions. Sylvia, do you want to add?
Yes, thanks. Yes, just maybe as Maciej has put it, so the helicopter view, I will try to give a first-hand example to the interested participants. So just by giving a very simple example from my past experience of the past few weeks. So just now during the winter, just a little background information. So the cohort is split into support teams of about 5 people. And in these support teams, we are actually doing a couple of team projects, which in certain subjects are considered our exams. So not actual exams, but the projects are used for the grading part. And so, for example, from advanced finance, which is an example of the hard skill or the hard subject. So we had to choose a company where we could evaluate many different aspects. So we evaluated the dividends, we evaluated the capital structure, we evaluated the stock values with different models, etc. So all examples of hard subjects. And then on the subject of leadership, we were asked to create scenarios and also to kind of propose the executives of the chosen company how to deal with the different scenarios implied by the pandemic situation. So my team, we deliberately have chosen the same company to do this. So this was a very nice example how to apply the hard skills of the advanced finance and the strategic out-of-box thinking from the leadership course to the exact same company.
Oh, that's such a good example. Thank you so much, Sylvia.
Thank you very much. The last question refers to the application process. Maciej, can you please explain how the application process works?
Sure. You can actually, maybe we can get rid of the screen sharing, yes? Yeah. So application is competitive, and the reason why application is competitive is not because we are snobs and want to make it competitive. It's because we are a small university, and all the fact we are bringing top people from across the university. You saw examples like really world-class people to teach our executive MBAs, and we thereby can do only one cohort a year. We are not like business schools that can create a factory production of MBAs. We can do one cohort. Now, exceptionally, with a lot of effort, we can split them into two. But long term, we can do one, which means that we are capped at 75 people. So how we approach it? Well, the trouble is that we also are too much of free thinkers to believe in standardized exams. We believe that this GRE and GMAT industry is a disaster. The data shows very little correlation between the scores and any measures of success of being a positive change agent in the world. So we don't use it. But then how do you screen the candidates? Well, it then requires a lot of work. We ask you not only to submit a CV, but also strong references and a cover letter. Remember about the cover letter, because it is your statement of not only what you want from the program, but how you would contribute to the joint learning experience. And then we actually, if we like what we see in the paper stage, then you actually will be invited for an interview, which is a relatively long 45-minute interview. It will be busy. It will be focused on very specific questions. And based on that interview and the paper trail, a committee, admission committee makes recommendations. The final decisions, interestingly enough, are not made by admission committee. They are made personally by CEU's president, who is now at the moment Michael Ignatieff. And that shows you how much the university cares about the selection, handpicking a really interesting class of the leaders of tomorrow. And part of this is also that there is no magic. The reason why this program is so affordable is because it's heavily subsidized from the university endowment. So even if you don't get a formal scholarship, you are de facto a scholar of CEU or fellowship recipient of CEU, because unlike virtually every other business school I know, CEU actually subsidizes management education because we believe it's an important contribution towards creating those open-minded leaders. So we need to be sure that this is going to work, that you are going to use this opportunity to your advantage, but also to the advantage of your organizations, your companies, and the society at large. It's straightforward, it's fast, but it is competitive.
Thank you very much. That was the last question. I would like to take the opportunity to apologize for the technical glitch at the beginning of the webinar. I will reach out to everybody who has joined us tonight and offer a one-on-one consultation if you did not have it already. I mean, you can have another one if you want to. I will be happy to present the program to you individually and to respond to all of your questions. And for now, I want to wish you a good night and stay safe. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, everybody.